Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's a brand new day.
Good morning.
Now prepare to experience the most outrageous man on radio.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
The only station that matters.
Okay.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
This is insane.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Thank you. Thanks for your kindness. I would like to say and generosity, but that has yet to occur. For breakfast, I had a Brazil nut, a couple of supplement pills, and I'm drinking a cup of coffee, black coffee. That's my problem, not yours. It rained again last night, and it was leaking into the bedroom. My Rube Goldberg device was capturing it, but it was a drip, 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 drip. Woke me up around midnight. It's supposed to rain like above average precipitation for this month, which I guess technically is not above average because today's Friday, so it's the weekend. So because April showers bring May flowers, supposedly.
Weekend weather.
Yeah, and I'm in the mid-Atlantic states. Let's take a look at it. 50% chance of rain. In the 40s overnight, in the 30s Saturday, thunder showers, low 40s, low 30s, below 0 Celsius and Fahrenheit, below freezing Fahrenheit. Sunday, snow, 50% chance of snow. Low 40s overnight, again below freezing. Monday and Tuesday are looking a little warmer, but Monday's looking like there could be rain. Isn't that special?
Weekend weather.
No, isn't that special? Yeah, isn't that special?
Really funny.
It's not that funny. It was funny when it first came out. So, yeah, it's early in the morning. I got up at 2 something or other. It's 4:02 a.m., so I don't know what I've been doing for the past 2 hours. I know I got up at 2:30. Awoke to like some kind of banging. It was probably the next door neighbor probably like banging against the rats that she's infested with. The witch, the bad witch as opposed to the good witch, right? Whatever. I put tar yesterday in the 2 areas where the rodent was coming from her yard into my yard. If somebody's new to the show and wondering what the heck I'm talking about,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
we usually start this show off. It's a vlog. We usually start off with a little update on what's going on, such as like the weather in the mid-Atlantic states. I'm east of the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic. Not north, not too south, I wouldn't call it the Goldilocks zone by any chance, In any event, in the rain I went out, I realized I had this thing of like tar patching, a can of this tar, whatever, sealant, but it was like basically tar. And I got this, scrap of wood stick. And I just like globbed that stuff into like 2 areas where I noticed this big giant frickin' rat was coming from her side. Because my yard's clean. Anyway, and then I put some birdseed out because I didn't put any birdseed out yesterday. I figured, well, screw it. I'm not feeding rats. And the birds could, birds' primary diet is bugs and stuff and that kind of thing. I don't know. And there was a lot of birdseed residue and stuff around. Well, anyway, so I do that, and I'm thinking, okay, good, accomplishment, at least a day of freedom until I can get some kind of, money, a couple of dollars. 15% off everything, the 4th through the 9th, through the for shirts and stuff, which really are for you, not for me, because I don't really make money on that stuff. It's a meager commission of like a paltry commission, 50 cents or something. I don't know, something like that. But for you, it could actually help you spread the word, because everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. Game over, then what? All that kind of stuff. This is a way of communicating with people in a really inobtrusive, not in your face, so to speak, because protesting is an exercise in futility. I'm adamantly opposed to it. But wearing a shirt like that might make someone's get into somebody's subconscious and make them think. You don't know what you don't know, Everything you know is wrong. What the hell is that? What's that guy mean? What's that all about? So you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to make eye contact, but you get a message. You can message someone. Get your message across. 15% off means you could probably buy the basic shirt for around $15 or something. The quality shirts. There's all kinds of other stuff on there, too. Be surprised. Check out the accessories. The Early Morning Show, hosted by Tony Caravan. A further examination of the odd and unusual. Tom Jones. It's not unusual. Living Among Zombies and Vampires is the other title of the show that may or may not have brought you here. But yeah, that's just the update. So I don't know. A friend of mine's coming down. I'm basically taking apart my house, my attic, because I can't afford to buy lumber. So I'm taking the walls in my attic apart to use that wood to maybe help shore up a fence in a yard. Imagine being that desperate. Meanwhile, I'm getting dripped on, and the water's coming down, and April showers are certainly back to bringing, I don't know if they're going to bring May flowers, but it's certainly back to the old fact that it's pretty much raining every frickin' day. And the cost of the things to patch these things are ridiculous. I noticed Gorilla Tape now seems to have an alternative to that. It's rubber in a can, but rubber in a can doesn't work. But their rubber tape isn't that bad. But Gorilla has like a waterproof sealing tape for about the same price, which I don't have. My bank screwed me out of $65. I ended up with negative $2 in my bank account. Imagine that. In this day and age. I messaged them. They're supposed to get back to you within like 24 or 48 hours. It's been like 72 hours. They haven't responded. They know they're guilty. They have nobody there. There's nobody works anymore. Right? Somebody was telling me last night. Somebody called me on the phone. They were talking about somebody, and I was telling them, I said, don't worry about your jobs. This person has a job. They make, one of these work-at-home jobs, but they make a lot of decent money. And they were saying a friend of theirs had this job, quit it, got another job, then walked off that job because they had an interview with a third job. And I said, yeah, and she was thinking that was like, I go, that's job security, man. I'm telling you, nobody wants to freaking work, and those that do work, they don't last there long. They get a couple bucks in their pockets and they quit. I said, someone like you who's conscientious or, doesn't mind, putting in a day's work for a day's salary. Teeth. Anyway, I said, you'd get your pick of the litter. If you ever lost your job, you could probably get a job within a couple days. And that's how it is now. I didn't check the numbers lately, but at least a month or two ago, there were like 11 million job openings in the U.S. 11 million. Think about that. And that's like, those are jobs reported through job sites and, all that stuff. If you take like the 10,000 cities and towns, boroughs, townships, locales, things that aren't even considered boroughs, all that, whatever the place you live in, is called or is incorporated as. We live in a corporatocracy. Within each one of those towns, there's dozens of jobs available, right? Say there were 10 jobs available in every township, borough, city. Well, when you throw the cities in, it's ridiculous. But I mean, just in like the 10,000. I know from radio that, the radio market, that, that there's a ton of places. There's a ton of places like where people live, put it that way. So let's just look at the places. Let's forget about New York City, places like that. Just places where people live. There's about 10 jobs available in every place where people live. And there's about 10,000 places where people live besides New York City and D.C. and Detroit and all these other frickin' places, L.A. and, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, Miami. 10 times 10,000, right, is 100,000 there alone, right? Right? But it's really like, it's more than that. It's, there's an extra, there's jobs. There's no reason why you cannot get a job if you want to work. And, the gig economy is such that it's like, that's easy too. I see so many of those things out there. Of course, I make nothing. And some people say, well, you're broke, maybe you should just do so. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm basically at the poverty level, okay? And I have this piece of property. And the way that I'm budgeted and my life is, I'm getting, my life, it's too hard to describe, but it's perfect. Put it this way. I've had cancer operation, a couple of years ago, kidney operations, they want to take my gallbladder out, all this other kind of weird stuff like that. I'm on Social Security. I've worked my entire life. I've made money and I paid the government taxes, more taxes than than the average person has ever paid. I've ran businesses. I've worked in every major market. And like I said before, so I'm not just boasting, but I believe I've made a difference in people's lives. And I think I've contributed to the civilization itself with innovations and things, particularly in technology and in the early days of the internet and that area, radio, advertising, in areas like that. I've had innovations that have continued since my stewardship of these various companies and, I don't know, fields of study and work, whatever. So you can't look at me as a deadbeat or anything like that, but I'm a victim and you're going to be a victim probably soon too, because the thing about it is, it's not the extreme poor that have a problem. They can always get a few bucks for something like that, or they're living in some like Section 8 housing building high rise or something like that. They've got bed bugs and roaches, I guess. But there's nothing that can be done about a guy who has a home that has a leaky roof and it has a neighbor that has a rat's nest, and those rats are coming from her yard into mine, right? And that the woman is literally a witch, burning like toxins, putting toxins into the air that come into my yard and stuff in the summertime. There's a sad thing. I took this picture from my second floor window, and you see how the cinder block on the side, at the right-hand side, has a hole in it. there's a really cute rabbit that apparently is living. She has got a stack of stuff that she's going to be burning, I guess, at some point. But a rabbit is taking up a home, a nest, and it's probably a female rabbit, maybe pregnant, that's probably going to have bunnies. So could you imagine what's going to happen when she goes out there with her matches or whatever and decides to light up that thing, and there's a bunny in there, like, sitting on top of her baby bunnies or something? Yeah, look at that. She's a witch. I don't like to I'm not making fun of her. She's an evil person. She's got a rat's nest. She's a hoarder. She's got roaches. Yeah. So what does this have to do with the further examination of the odd and the unusual living among zombies and vampires? Well, I rest my case. Okay? Anyway, I had to get that off my chest. And I'm sorry I have that 15% off every order thing on my site. That kind of thing bothers people. I'm sorry. It's like, what the heck? What are you going to do? I mean, all around us is like hypocrisy for profit and 15% off every order. I guess the daily photo needs to be below that. Let's see. Yeah. Wait, is it? Yeah, that's better. All right. We had an interesting show yesterday. If you didn't see yesterday's show, YouTube cut me off. And they may well do it again today, even though I'm broadcasting it like, I don't know, 30 frames per second. CPU levels really low. I'm hardly using any computer power. I got well over 90% of my computer, available CPU. And my kilobytes per second are coming out at like averaging 2,700 kilobytes per second. More than enough to broadcast, webcast, podcast, right? So, and it's clean, and the weather is right now seems to be somewhat mellow for the moment. I don't know if I really actually said that to you. Currently, it is 39 degrees outside my studio. It's going to hit 37 by sunrise. Sunrise allegedly is going to be at 6:47 a.m. So around 6:30 usually. We'll notice if I'm still broadcasting by then, I probably won't be. But which is just as well. So anyway, that just brings you up to date. I don't know. Anybody have any questions?
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
Well, if you've been listening, I'm doing okay, and just dealing with basically the struggle of life, human life, and it's a further examination into the odd and unusual, or I guess Rod Serling said it this way.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Yeah, very different, unusual, whatever. Vampires, succubus, all these people out there, zombies, right? And, it's like how to live among them, right? And that's what I'm doing. And the bureaucracy and the people, the so-called people in charge, pardon me for moving around in this hat. I have like light reflecting upwards, which is the worst thing you could ever do. So you're much, but though then again, the light on this card that I have up, which I don't know if there's really a need for me to put that there. This is the early morning show hosted by Tony Caravan. I don't know if that photo needs to be up. It's got some like veins coming out of my neck. But nonetheless, that's that. So, yeah, it's just a crazy world we live in. And, it's like, what a ridiculous statement. I realize that. I'm just trying to wake up, man. Give me a break.
This is insane.
So I'll get there. And anybody who watched the show before, just be patient. We're 20 minutes into it. Usually takes about that long. I noticed someone on Rumble had commented on one of my shows that it started at 10 or 20 minutes into it. So they get it. And that's cool that you get it. And I like those kind of comments. It was a comment I just saw this morning. It was on one of my previous videos. My videos appear on Rumble a day late. If YouTube continues to just cut me off like, bam, I'm talking and whoop, then I'm off. It's nothing on my part. I've investigated. I've said this before. I've investigated with my ISP, my equipment, done equipment checks, all kinds of things. And no, it's just them, being, pricks. But I'll be broadcasting live over there. So, check that thing, rockflux.com is my website, and there's a link to that there. It's my channel's called ROCKFLUX there. I own ROCKFLUX. I've owned ROCKFLUX.com, the name ROCKFLUX, trademarked it over 25 some years ago, maybe 30 years ago. Who knows? I've been using that stuff forever. It even could be longer than that, tell you the truth. 35, I don't know, be honest. So that's me. I am ROCKFLUX. Others have tried to steal it from me, use it, whatever, have fun. But it's, I'm going to get you. No. But anyway, so I don't know what the games that they play, but they're liable to play them today. And if they do play them today, I guess it's best I get into the story as soon as possible. And just remember, rockflux.com. In case. So, the vampires, the succubus, the zombies. Like I was talking about. All these things people talk about. What is commonly referred to as mythology to people. Right? It's like anytime you talk about anything that isn't like modern science, so to speak. And there's no such thing as science anymore. There's scientism, right? There are people that work in, legitimate physicists, astrophysicists, archaeologists, geologists, and biologists, and people like that. Okay, so there are scientists, just like there are witches, there are. It's a Star Trek line. Never let a good Star Trek line go to waste. All right? I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but, you got your communicator? Anyway, but, generally speaking, what we have today is scientism. It's a cult. And scientism, just because they have control over, the editorial boards of, the major journals, they've got seats at major universities, that they have people at the UN, and people at the World Economic Forum, who meet at Davos, because because the people in the billionaire class support them. But you have to remember that when it comes to the billionaire class, everything really, truly, indeed is hypocrisy for profit. These people have no concern about moral standards or any of the stuff that they spew out of their mouth. It's all pretense. It's hypocrisy for profit. For example, I was watching an Indian from India, an Indian television broadcast through YouTube, and the woman announcer was explaining, and she had the data in front of her. So this isn't coming from the top of my head. All right. I'm quoting, and she was demonstrating how that the U.S. is still buying X amount of uranium from Russia, is still buying oil from Russia. In fact, increased the amount we're buying from Russia. How Europe is buying ridiculous, 30-some billion dollars worth of oil from Russia. And so so that the media and the politicians report one thing. Oh, we've got sanctions, we're against this, and we're going to give $1 billion, right? So I think something like the EU, and, you have to investigate this stuff yourself. These numbers are public figures, literally public figures, not as in a figure as in a person, but I mean, these are public figures as in numbers, right? Data. You have to do this investigation yourself if you want to question it. Don't question me, you see? Question yourself, right? What I'm trying to say is you don't know what you don't know, and everything you know is wrong. You think you know stuff, but you don't know, and you have to check it out. All right? And so if the EU or NATO gives $1 billion in aid to Ukraine, but then the EU purchases 30-some billion dollars worth of oil from Russia, do you see the absurdity of that? Do you see the hypocrisy? Okay? In effect, Europe, EU, is supporting the war against Ukraine. That's right. The discrepancy is one of 30, some odd billion dollars. They're paying for that war. And likewise the U.S. The reason the U.S. doesn't want to stop getting oil and uranium from Russia is because it would cost the U.S. $1 billion. All right? So the U.S. doesn't want to give up that billion. So they, in effect, are funding this. But, so they put all these, sanctions on oligarchs and banks and stuff, But countries like Russia and China, they got gold and, raw materials. Like, for example, they have fertilizer and, and things that are needed, oil and natural resources that are needed by the world. China is the basically forced labor camp of Western civilization. Right? I mean, apart from the gulags and where they're selling organs and all that kind of stuff, which has been documented, you see that China's got, a breakout of the thing again, and they're locking people down. Despite what people try to do, because of satellite technology and what have you, and even though Sino, which is China, even though China has a what they call an intranet, right? They try to close it down to the outside world. People get stuff out because it's easy to get stuff out now. All you need is tap into a sat dish, right? And you could get your internet little feed out, or, there's a million ways, right? Well, anyway, I was watching someone who had videos, cell phone videos from China, and it was a rather lengthy, YouTube video, fresh, brand new, and it had, with multiple locations, and it was just like flashback in different areas of things that happened a couple of years ago, welding people into houses, people trying to climb, locking people up, building these basically prison camp type of installations, quick, putting people in cages basically because they can't control this thing. And, the CCP, I guess higher ups are about to have their big meeting so that with Xi to, even though he's the dictator and it's very unlikely he would be ousted, the idea is he managing things, so he's doing all this stuff to basically control the populace. But it's it's brutal what's going on in China right now. It's brutal. And yet you're sitting there using a smartphone and certain tech that you got from them. See, I'm not part of that hypocrisy because I haven't bought anything like that. I don't buy anything like that. I pretty much buy American. And I don't buy that much stuff at all anyway. It's like my food. I'm out of processed food. I don't buy processed foods at all anymore, so I'm not getting anything that's coming over somehow through there or even, through our own system of hypocrisy and poisoning, FDA poisons. I should say FDA approved poisons. But, and as far as gadgetry is concerned. But yeah, that's what's going on there. So you got that going on. And then the hypocrisy in this country with the media and stuff, like I say, the media and politicians are marionettes. I say it every day. You bored with me saying that? Well, you're a puppet of the puppets if you're still watching it. I was thinking today, I was, as I was like, getting myself ready for the day in my upstairs bathroom, splashing some cold water in my face and washing my face and shaving and that kind of thing. I have these wires that come across the floor by the door to my bathroom that go into my back bedroom, since I had to move into the back bedroom originally because the front room was like too cold. Too big a room, and it was a little bit noisier with the trucks going, which today's Friday. The trucks won't start for another half hour or 20 minutes. Coal trucks that'll fuel your Tesla electric car. But anyway, of course, now it leaks, and just my luck, I move into this smaller, compact bedroom, move all my stuff back there, and now I've got to have this big plastic tarp on my roof, my ceiling. And it rains down, and I have to have it angled in such a way that when it rains, it comes down the tarp and goes straight down into a bucket that I have, and I have a sock in the bottom so that it doesn't splash out. It just quiets it. Imagine living like that. You know what I mean? This is a guy who's been like a general manager of a frickin' radio station, a creative director of an advertising agency, right? Ran his own businesses, published magazines, was a supervisor at, publications department at an Ivy League school. The stuff I've done, I can't, worked in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. You know what I mean? The stuff I've done over my life, right? Lifestyles, lived in Malibu, lived in penthouses in New York City, luxurious apartments, the whole 9 yards, traveled around the world, did all this kind of stuff, traveled first class in planes. And I'm in this frickin' room and I got a leaky roof coming down because this is the society that we've denigrated to. It's not exactly how I expected to live at this juncture. Further examination, of the odd and unusual. There's a lot of people like this, and there's a lot of people worse off with me. Well, anyway, so I'm in there, I don't know, drying my face off, and I'm looking at these wires. And one of the wires was a cable wire because a couple of years ago I had satellite TV. I had what is the one? The one AT&T owns, DirecTV, who screwed me over and actually has my credit report down. They claim this is the funniest thing. I returned my equipment, got a receipt. You return it through like the UPS store. They give you a receipt, right? So it's got the serial number, the date that equipment was returned or whatever. Well, anyway, 6 months after all that stuff, I get a bill. I'm getting bills and collection notices from DirecTV. And so I'm like, hey, man, and then I send the copies of all this documentation to them. Apparently these credit agencies, they don't even open mail. You can't communicate with them. I talked to them on the phone. I sent them stuff. You can't communicate with them. They don't care. There's nobody there, right? They have no one. They're either chat bots or, who knows what. The mail just goes in. It probably just goes right into some kind of shredder, right? So it knocked my credit rating way down. They have me as as if I was delinquent on something. And out of principle, I'm not going to pay for something, that I don't have, I don't use or whatever. But anyway, there's the old wire from the DirecTV. And for a moment in my mind, I thought, well, maybe I'll, in case I wonder if I will have ever used TV in that back room. And should I get, because I'm thinking of rewiring it because these wires are on the floor. But, I have them kind of flattened down. I was going to tape over them or get one of those things they use in office, those modular office carrel units like in that, if you remember that movie, The Office, that funny thing where the guy just like did nothing, and stuff. Well, they have these things that go between them so people don't trip. They're like these little rubberized, it's kind of like a threshold on a doorway. It's like kind of just subtle bump, but it's flat to the ground. So you're really not going to trip on it, And I was thinking maybe I should order one of those for those wires. But I realized that the only really big wire was this old cable wire. I have an internet wire there and a speaker wire. But both of those, I think I have enough slack that I could probably run them. I just have to amidst, when it's not raining and I'm not trying to put, collect water in buckets or, try to play whack-a-mole with a rat that's holding back my garden deal. All available money finances that I have, I've been going to either patching the roof or trying to get rid of this rat. I literally had no breakfast today. I have no food in the house. I have food. I will be able to make pasta. I'm very surprised that I've been eating pasta for 3 days and I have not gained weight. So it's like, that's kind of weird. But I guess it's because I'm skipping breakfast and dinner. So I'm just having this one big pasta meal, I try to put as many herbs, but they're spices, herbs and spices things in, which just really aren't as good as eating, fresh vegetables and the real thing, Once you freeze dry it, cook it, whatever, it's just not the same. It's flavor. It's flavoring, right? It's like garlic. If you roast garlic or you could boil garlic, if you're making a pasta and you have just like garlic cloves, put them in there. It's the same as roasted garlic. Boy, is that tasty. If you like the flavor of garlic, roasted garlic, it's a different flavor than if like you just have like, chopped garlic or minced garlic or something like that. But, I'll put that in. But when you do that, once you cook it, it loses that allicin which is the stuff that's the antiviral, the stuff that's really good for your immune system. You know, it's fresh chopped garlic that's the healthiest for you. Just an aside. But it tastes great, you know, when it's either roasted or boiled in with pasta. Be that as it may, you know, poor pitiful me, you know, I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Don't worry about it. I've learned to live with this stuff.
Okay.
She laughs at it, you know. So yeah, that's
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I spilled coffee on myself. Just washed this shirt, handkerchief, both shirts, hats. Another the classic white handkerchief got washed yesterday again. Let's see if that. This camera is so whack-a-doodle. It's like I say, it's a mirror that isn't a mirror. Figure that one out. In other words, I can see the on-air light as on, like it says on air, but this is not, you know, is probably coming out on your right side of the screen, but it's my left hand. A mirror that isn't a mirror. Just another one of those weird anomalies, tech anomalies, you know, strange stuff, you know. So what is it with these vampires and succubus and these zombies out there? You know, we know most people, anybody who is, you know, the marionettes, the woman in the black jumpsuit, whatever you call those things, I have no idea, you know, is a puppet of the media and politicians. That's someone who watches, you know, YouTube pundits, right? The people who talk about mainstream media, which is the girl in purple, media and politicians. So they're marionettes of marionettes. And don't even try to go there and say, well, what do you think you are? Do you see me posting and talking about some particular article or playing a video that's on some cable channel and then sitting around with a couple of people and then like talking about it? No, I'm creating original content. All right. You know, whether it's from my mind or, you know, as in many other instances, my own book, Codex, then what, my own thing, my own, this so-called clothing line or things that I sell, which are basically, I'm just through an affiliate that I'm just trying to get across to help you communicate, or the great solar stuff that I'm just trying to give you in case this grid goes down, which I keep talking about and people don't understand. It's inevitable that we're going to have a grid down situation, and it's really most likely we're not going to be able to recover. We simply, if we were to have, and you can research the Carrington event yourself that happened in the days, it's a recurring thing. The sun, you know, has these outbursts. But the Carrington event is like a fairly frequent one that happened only some years ago in the telegraph era. And it pretty much took out the telegraph system. Well, our primary grid system is basically high tension wires and basically telephone poles. You know, people don't even know telephone poles. Who uses telephones? I have a smartphone. Well, it doesn't matter if you use a telephone or not. They're telephone poles. And it depends on where you are. Some of them are leftover telegraph poles, where they're in the exact same spot where the telegraph poles were. And that's where they run people's cable wires, and they've got, you know, electrical transmission grid lines on there, you know, and all sorts of other things, you know. Well, the point of the matter is when you have these, you know, people, if it doesn't happen in their own time, they imagine that, it's myth. That's how I started talking about this. It's like mythology, or, when I was saying scientism before. Science is only several centuries old, but what scientism, right, these people who just, are into the dogma of scientism, they just like refuse to accept anything that's happened before the scientific era, right, as even having the remotest possibility of being of it being true, accurate, So it's myth, it's religion. Ancient structures are all temples, right? Well, they couldn't be anything else. These are primitive people, but they weren't primitive people. I said the other day, but they wore loincloths. Yeah, well, if you live loincloths or, whatever, first of all, you have no idea what they really wore, okay? Because you weren't there. All right? You've seen some paintings or something of a particular thing or whatever. These people could have been stripped down by conquistadors or colonial man. But whether or not, the point is, if it was hot, what's the difference between someone making an animal skin pair of shorts and you buying some shorts made in China by, slave labor? Right? Do you see what I mean? Oh, these are primitive people because they weren't wearing a shirt and they had like some kind of, loincloth on. No, they were wearing a pair of shirts and they weren't a pair of shorts, and they didn't have necessarily a shirt on that day. Sometimes they did. They had vests and stuff. Like I said before, if you go to the East, they had very elaborate clothes. Their clothes were made of silk and very elaborate. Colorful and, interesting stuff. In fact, way more complex than the clothes that people wear in the U.S. today. People walk around with like a 50-50 polyester shirt, the Beau Brummel, right? What's everybody wearing a coat? You get a job in an office and you wear a sport jacket, a tie, and a shirt, and a pair of pants with a crease in them and some kind of hard shoe. Why? It's a uniform. Do you understand these things that are in plain sight that the average person just doesn't seem to get? Right? And then they'll criticize some culture that existed 1,000 years ago. And I keep trying to tell you, human beings have been the same brain. The same, okay? The only difference is language. All right? If you were to learn the language of somebody in a culture 5,000 years ago and talk to them in their language, or they talk to you and learned your language, they'd probably be more likely to learn your language, because our brains are so filled with jello that we don't, we don't even know what life's all about, right? We're conditioned and indoctrinated as, right after maternity leave, thrown into preschool, pre-daycare, kindergartens, and put through a school system for half our life almost. Half the life of the people alive today. Nobody's going to live past 50 today. I've explained that in a previous show. Go back and find that. So, these people not only had the exact same brain and thought processes as we have, but they were probably in general more intelligent than we are, right? They probably had higher IQs, you know, because they were using their brains. Were actually using their brains, and they were, you know, and they were more open, and they saw the world the way it was, more better and clearer than we do. We see what we need to see, so we don't see in order to survive in this world of suits and ties and uniforms and office buildings and material things, you know, stuff that's sold on commercials, and gather and accumulate all these objects, right? And live like the next person. You know, we're not free, right? It's like, you know, starting in the 60s, there was like this movement to just outlaw art and creativity, right? And look at what we have today, right? They succeeded, right? Music is like, it's all the same. Same producers, same writers, right? The Grammy Awards are like, you know, don't take my word for it. I've seen many a producer, you know, people who've produced prior to this era, you know, somebody who goes back, people who produced classic albums discuss this and discuss the state of music today and say it's pitiful. Now, I'm not talking about independent people who are producing stuff, but you know, those poor bastards. It's like I've got 50 songs out there too, but the point is I'm not out there on tour, you know, with the band hustling it, you know, playing a shitload of gigs, right, and promoting the crap out of it. Because unless you do it, because that's the deal the record companies have. They still have the distribution and the ends with, you know, with like Clear Channel and the radio stations and the markets, and they control it. So they put out this stuff and everything sounds the same. It's like the entertainment business. It's all co-opted, right? You know, video, film. And politics is the same thing. It's all co-opted. It's all controlled by big pharma, big tech, military contractors, the Fed, and Wall Street. Right. It's like, the media is, they're in it. It's hypocrisy for profit. They're in it because they make $20 million salaries to be on the air. Think they're going to give that up, because of their moral fiber or something inside of them. Their conscience is bothering them that they, they aren't reporting the truth. In their minds, they're not lying. They're just holding back something. You know, what's that thing? Well, it's not a lie if you don't say it. Right? Yeah, it is. It's a lie of omission. You can lie by omission. Because if there's a key piece of information that would change the way a person would see the story, then you're lying to them because you're lying by omission. You're not mentioning the other part, the hypocrisy, right? Like I started out saying. So you're just reporting the U.S. is putting the most stringent sanctions on Russia that have ever been done to any country, and are sending all sorts of military equipment in support of this poor country. Right? But what should happen is that meanwhile, they're paying Russia $38 million, which in effect is supporting the war effort on the side of Russia. It's a lie of omission. If you don't mention the second part, it's a lie of omission. So you give people the wrong impression. So those are the zombies walking around, are the people who just watch TV. And like I was saying in the bathroom, when I was looking at that wire, I'm going, no, I don't need to get anything. I just need to rip up that old cable wire because it's the biggest wire on the floor. I'm never going to get TV again or satellite TV. I'm done with that. I was thinking, what would I watch? I have no interest in the so-called news channels whatsoever. There's nothing there. Even though there are a couple of, channels, so to speak, most of which have gotten kicked off of like DirecTV and stuff like that anyway. But that there are, there are some journalists out there, that are real journalists. But most of those aren't on TV. They're just on the internet, or you could find their clips on YouTube, So, yeah, and I realize this is just a flow of consciousness show. And, I do these every now and then. It's just what's on my mind. I'm just talking, kind of reviewing. It's a Friday, review the week. I think you ought to go back and look at some of the videos I made in the past week or two. There have been some very good videos over the past couple weeks. There's been a couple of, duds. It always is. It's like my music. You do 50 songs. There's a couple of, there's some duds in there. And, you write 10 books and there's some stuff in there that's like, not the greatest. But, and like I say, I self-publish my books, printed in the USA, by the way, though. And I create them for print, though they're available in digital format. But I don't recommend digital. All right? I really don't. They don't translate to digital. It's one of the failings of like Apple Books and Kindle, that there are certain things you can do and create through there. And if you have a big publishing house and you've got people who are, a team or people who are working on this stuff and willing to put in weeks and weeks, it's like, no, but an individual. It's like I do it the right way. I use the proper programs. I do all that stuff. But my books are made for print. If I have something in there, a form, like a budgetary form or some kind of worksheet, or certain images. And my last book, Then What, has a lot of images in it. Excuse me. I don't know what happened.
Really funny. Really funny.
Yeah, I know.
Now prepare to experience the most outrageous man on radio.
Yeah, radio. I miss radio. That's why I do this thing, because I've done that my whole life. I filled my coffee to the rim. So, things aren't going to change. That's the takeaway from today's show. All right? There are just going to be more people, more zombies. We're creating a society of zombies. And the vampires and succubus, they are basically, they're running the world. Okay? And you could get into all kinds of weird stuff about that. Almost to the point of them of that being literally true, to the point of it being, just, creating analogies or using it for, examples of, for describing, what they do and and how they act. And both are true, There's some sick people, and there are so many mysteries that we can't explore, right? And you say, what do you mean you can't explore them? Didn't you say in your thing, further exploration? Did I use the word exploration? No, examination. Well, we can't even examine it. A further examination of the odd and the unusual. The early morning show. With me with lighting on the face. It looks like my veins are coming out of my neck somehow. It's pretty funny. I actually look better like this. That's from having eaten healthy for 3 or 4 months straight. So I still have the residue of that. So I have decent skin tone and, and all of that. But I got to get back to eating healthy because those, vitamins that are stored within my body are going to start being depleted. Right? That's the thing. In fact, I got to make a note today about getting something. Pardon me while I do this. And I've got to get. Apparently, rats don't like ammonia. Like I might be able to go to the dollar store today. And if I do, I'll get a couple of things. I'm going to do it. It's going to rain. It's supposed to rain and all that stuff. But it's like yesterday. I went out in the rain and did what I had to do. But I want to deal with this just for a second. A further examination of the odd and unusual. And the reason that you can't, I have all that hair tucked under my hat right now, by the way, from like yesterday's video. Okay, relax, pushed back. The many faces of one Tony Caravan live, right? It's all show business, babe. So, the reason you can't explore and examine that stuff is because it's the unknowable, right? It's like in religion, they have faith, So you can have faith, but you have to have faith. You can't examine it. See, that's the problem why I call it scientism. All right, when we talk about science. Science! I really should have that soundbite from Dolby. I have the song somewhere, so it wouldn't be hard for me to cut that piece out, I don't know if it's on this computer. We could do a quick check. Let's see here. Dolby. Nope. Nope. Not there. Let's check music in general. Sometimes the old search, Apple search is the worst search in the world. I do have the song on here. So let's see. See if we could find that line. Gotta find that guy. There it is. Okay, 133. This is interesting. How I have to do this. So what I have to do is I have to go to options. If you have an Apple, you could do this. What I want to do is I want to start at 1:33. And I want to end at 1:39. Usually with 6 seconds, they don't bother you. Okay? I don't know why it says remember playback position. So let's see what happens if I move this into show. Go to show. Move it up. Move it on up. And see what happens.
Science!
Yeah. So.
Science!
So. That's radio. Audio stuff. That's on a G5. It's like my 15-year-old computer. I was looking this morning before I came down. I was trying to find the box for InDesign and Photoshop, these programs that I bought. Now, I know I do have down below, and I haven't done this in a while. I have to take the headphones off. Hold on a second. Right before they ended the, right around the time when Apple Computer was coming out with the great and glorious X, as they called it, you know, their operating system. You see, these are pretty thick boxes too. Mac OS X, Tiger. All right. This is a good one. You know, you used to get the box, the CD, serial number, and you had to buy it. And then sometimes, if you depending on the package you bought, you would get, you know, something like, look at this is from 08. But this is the iLife. And in this thing, we could open it up. You know, you see in here you would have like a CD, you know, and all that stuff. And this is all these programs. And you would sometimes get these things included if you know, bought something. Let's see if you can look. If this is the old or if this is the new. There's iPhoto and iMovie 08. iMovie 08 is when they ruined iMovie. Right. Of course, you had iDVD. Of course, they stopped putting DVDs in. iWeb. Right. They got rid of that quick enough. And GarageBand, well, they kept that. But that, you know, these are the small boxes compared to the boxes that used to be like, you know, I don't know, 2.5. This chair. See, I knew I shouldn't have moved because I had the perfect position, you know.
Science!
So, but it's unknowable, you know, the things, even in science. You know, but they have theories. But see, science is allowed to have theories. And the zombies believe the theories. Because somebody scribbles on a chalkboard or a whiteboard or a computer, you know, publishes a paper, and has some sort of theorem and formulae that lay out, you know, a bunch of scribbling that says, well, yeah, see, this proves it. But, then you go back to thousands of years of writings by what we call ancient people, right? They call the ancients. But everything they did is mythology or religious, It's a belief system. It's, hocus pocus, whatever. And there's no serious examination, or they're not taken serious. And there are no papers written on them. I mean, there may well be, but they're never published, right? So then you get guys like Alexander or Sitchin. What was his name? Was Alexander? I don't know, but Sitchin, whatever, who wrote a lot about the Anunnaki and Sumerians. But Sitchin's was a translator, but a lot of Sitchin's stuff was wrong. He basically, he filled in the blanks. He made this, he created narratives so that it's not like Sitchin's was a fraud. There's a wealth of information about Sumerian culture that came from Sitchin, his translations. But he also basically published a lot of books in which he kind of filled in the blanks, and that wasn't exactly, 100% there. Now, fortunately, those various clay tablets and, whatever, they still exist in museums and have been digitized and can be looked at and translated through, certain university libraries and whatnot. And so we can, we could separate, the wheat from the chaff, or, fact from fiction. But apart from that, the Sumerian culture, which is starting to become a little more accepted. And then, of course, you have the Dead Sea Scrolls and and some of these other things where there's been documentation, in other words, independent confirmation of something that previously was thought to be mythology, right? Or some religious belief. I mean, the earliest one, the first one to ever, be accepted by mainstream science, so to speak, as,
Science!
I realize I should just have the word science, isolated itself. And I guess I will do that eventually. I won't waste your time right now on that. Was the Great Flood, right? Because there were so many flood so-called myths from all parts of the world, not just about, but like on every continent, that science had to accept the fact that there was some sort of event that apparently was global in nature, right? Because all of these independent, cultures, civilizations couldn't possibly have, talked about the exact same thing when there was no, they had no connection among themselves, or so scientists believe. But be that as it may, the idea is that, oddly enough, speaking of the flood myth, that coincides with this cyclical solar micronova that, we're basically falling into that time frame now, which is completely being ignored by mainstream science. However, as far as we know, but that it seems that the billionaire class and governments are preparing for it, right? They've got, they started years ago when they put the seed bank up there in Svalbard, right? But, they have all these underground things. DARPA had this major competition last year, in the last year and a half or so, for these underground robotic things. In order, and they've created all these underground, you can't call them bunkers. They're basically places for people to survive. And the billionaires, they have these condos, underground condos that are basically like with walls of video that, make it look like you're living above ground, but that are literally like luxurious resorts. And these condos are like, you can't afford them. But they're, you can live out a nuclear holocaust or a global cataclysm in them. Now, that's assuming that you don't have, as the CIA document, which I showed on this show several times, that was classified for like 40, 50 years, that talks about this cataclysm. Why the CIA would classify that is interesting. But that you don't have geothermal activity, earthquakes and a volcanic activity that basically makes hiding underground not necessarily a good thing, right? So you just paid $100 million or something for this bunker, and there's a 12 point or 16 magnitude earthquake, and it's just basically your place is destroyed and starts filling up with magma. But that's how people survived before. And I talked about that yesterday when I was getting into that idea of the ant people, that we may be the ant people. But like all these things are really kind of unknowable. And you're saying, wait a second, talk about that ant people thing again. Well, it's the idea that as you take, I believe I'm the only one that this is my own. I would call it a theory. Okay. So, make sure you give me credit for this one. All right. Don't go stealing it. People think things are free on the internet, right? That's another thing, right? Okay, so imagine AI goes to the next level, all right? And it's buried down in the ground. I talked about this yesterday. Watch yesterday's show. It was interesting. There's a part, like I say, it cuts out in the end. The first part is just kind of the usual Tony Caravan beginning, the first 20 minutes or so. But then like now I get into the meat of something. There's always some kind of major takeaway that's a mind fuck, all right? And if that word offends you, I'm sorry, but it puts your brain through a blender, all right? And this is one of them. Okay, so imagine incredible AI, these stored in this DARPA underground thing that they held these contests for. And you have this nova, this solar nova, which was the type of thing that people recall as the flood story. All right. The Earth, the surface of the planet of the Earth is basically rendered unlivable. All right. And then it flash freezes over after. It's just like an incredible global extinction event. All right. There are survivors. All right. In certain caves, certain areas, but there's no way of predicting where you can survive, how you can survive. All right? That's like it's a roll of the dice. There's people that are trying to build underground bunkers and stuff, but forget it, man. Your place will either get flooded with water, shaken and crumbled, and you'll be pummeled by rocks, or you'll be or your cavern will be filled up with magma from below, and you'll just be, turned into liquid. All right, but let's assume that there are these places, geologically sound places, and that people can find these places. It's like these salt mines or certain areas or whatever. Maybe some place, people, they really have, when I say they, I mean people that are studying the geology of the planet, all right, from like where the solid parts of the continents extend down, and where the liquid magma. We have this. It's like, just imagine ground penetrating radar, but on a level beyond, just going down to see, what might some archaeological dig. Imagine ground penetrating radar that could go down miles and miles. All right. They have that kind of stuff. This has been created. I'm sure people who deal with fracking in the oil industry and stuff like that, But this is high-end stuff. This technology exists. Trust me, there's all kinds of technologies that exist that you have no idea, right? It's the year 2022. Every time I say that, somebody thinks they laugh at that. Like, why is he making a big deal about it? Because it's the future. We're living in the future, right? Do you understand that?
The future. He came from the future.
Just get it. Wake up to reality, okay? He came from the future, all right? That's what I'm here. I'm trying to help you frickin' people out. And the least you could do is buy some stuff or use my PayPal link below and send me $500 before the show's over so I can get some food. Anyway, so they're down in this thing. Well, if you came from the future, well, you can't bring gold with you. All right. Okay, so this advanced AI exists and is preserved down in underground. All right, in these caverns that are geologically sound. All right, and they're powered through means of nuclear power that's beyond the type of nuclear power we're using today, right? Because there's more advanced nuclear power, right? See, we could have saved the grid. We could have saved the infrastructure of this country, but it's too late now. See, it's too late. All right? We blew it, right? We blew it in the 80s. That's when we needed to do it. But instead, all the so-called hippies became yuppies, and they just wanted to play the stock market and, live in the suburbs and have materialistic things and do all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. Right? That show 30-something is like, if you could ever find an episode of, if you ever want a projectile vomit, watch the show 30-something. Okay? Those are the people that destroyed America. Like you say, well, who, not the Russians, not the communist Chinese, not Fidel Castro, right? Not the socialist, communist, right? The Democrats. Okay? No. Watch a show 30-something. Watch one episode of 30-something. Those are the people that destroyed the United States. This is the former United States. All right? Because of those motherfuckers. All right? Okay, so forget that. So you're down. So imagine this place where you've got this AI system. It's preserved. Okay? And if you haven't seen the Tesla robots, right? That little press thing he did. And then and what they are. Okay? And I don't really know if I have a copy of that. Here. Let me just see if I do. If I do, I'll quick show you it. All right. Just so you know. I mean, I could go online, but I did it. I had a copy of it. Mac is so slow with search. It would have been easier for me to just go online. Let's see here. Tesla robot. Okay. Yeah. I actually have it. Okay. So you got these Tesla robots, and you can see this was taken from the Tesla Live. There's this goddamn 15% thing off. I'm sorry for that. Okay. And there's Elon Musk. Let me just put this. I have to shrink this so there's a little bit, because if you're watching this on a TV, sometimes the ends cut off. Okay, so these Tesla robots are manning this AI system that is a computer system that is buried in this geologically sound area, okay? And they're tied in, and they could communicate. Forget about this world built by humans, for humans, friendly, eliminates dangerous, repetitive, boring tasks, blah, blah, blah. That's all nonsense. I just wanted to show you this is the robot that they're supposedly going to come out with this year. All right? And I'm going to put my 15% back off, whether you like it or not. Okay, so the Tesla robots are going to be manning the AI system, and they'll be connected to it. All right? And there's things that will have to be done, maintenance tasks. These okay, because we're talking centuries, all right, until the Earth may recover. All right? But imagine if it might even be millennia. All right. So you have this AI, all the world's accumulated knowledge buried. I wrote a movie about that was almost like based upon this. It appears in my first or second book. I was in Australia. We were producing that movie. We were into pre-production on it. And I never finished making that movie. Okay? We literally had sets, and we were into it. I mean, we had signed deals, all right? But forget that. But this is the gist of it in modern terms, in reality, the pity. And I was doing this movie, we're talking about 40 years ago, 35 years ago. So I've been working on this kind of stuff for a long time. Actually, about 35 years ago. Like I say, I was on the internet 35 years ago. Because that's right, we were passing scripts back and forth through my Mac from U.S. to Australia. Yeah, and over to the UK. Because I had an executive producer in the UK who had worked for ITC. I don't mind dropping names. And I was basically, we were building our sets at De Laurentiis Studios in Queensland, Australia. So, this was there. We already had, we basically had key personnel in place. It was going. It was a very wild concept. All right. And the place we had chose, it was going to be under Ayers Rock. So think about that. A geologically sound place. All right. But this was, this was more, I was still into the entertainment business at that point, and this was going to be the preservation of the highest and best that man had achieved. And this particular film revolved around a music industry, right? Right. And the disappearance of a person because these porters, these people would request certain people to come in, and they would bring them down there, and and it was pretty wild. I have a song. I wrote some songs for it, and I had some other artists that through a music company, and I had an agent, one of the three at that time, three prestigious talent agencies representation for me at that time. Yeah, see, my world is a really weird world. That was what kind of stuff, that was just something I was doing like 35 years ago. It's weird for you to hear this in the middle of this weird talk about AI. Because this wasn't about AI, but I'm just telling you. But this ties into that. And it would be a cool movie, and I'd be more than happy to be a consultant on it and provide my original script ideas and insights into it if someone wants to produce this thing. I just don't want to. I don't want to produce it, but for a couple of points or a piece, I'll basically guide you and walk you through this whole thing. It's a great thing. If somebody wants to, update the script and stuff like that, I'll work with you, through this medium. Anyway, So what you have to do is, okay, let's imagine that this cataclysm is going to occur sometime within the next 24 years, right? Between now and a quarter of a century from now. Okay? It's happened in the past, it'll happen again. And that there are individuals that are going to will be at GPT-4, GPT-5 if we go that far. But I mean, AI will have advanced to such a point that it will be, I wouldn't call it sentient, because AI is the sum of the knowledge that you give it. But if properly placed, in some sort of server farm, under, some kind of server farm that is in this place, in this geologically sound area, with access to the man's, when I mean man, I mean mankind. Sorry, I'm not going to get into words. Man's accumulated knowledge, which includes arts, definitely includes arts. Okay? Because without creativity, there is no humanity. All right? That's why in school they were used to call them the humanities. I don't know if they still do. Right? But it used to be what you would be, that would be the department, humanities. Right? And that'd be art, music, theater, the humanities. So that's what humanity is. Humanity is creativity, because knowledge is just knowledge, right? It's like I said, it's scribblings on chalkboards and whiteboards and theories about things and other things, and certain things that are unknowable, all right, that people postulate, right? Create hypotheses and theories about. But the humanities, art is real. Okay? Art is real. It's tangible. Its creativity is what we are, what makes us human. Creativity is our consciousness. Right? So you have these external things, which are basically these Tesla type of robots, all right? These humanoid robots that are manning this AI operation. I don't know how many of those you would have down there, but you might have dozens, right? There might be 100, right? And there are things that need to be done, maintenance on these machines, and there would have to be, like, in other words, you're talking about computers. AI is housed within this server farm that's in this geologically sound place underground. So things, you have to deal with connections. Things will have to be repaired, upgraded, right? The AI itself, which will be tied into these, autonomous, humanoid type robots, but basically, will, they will have to perform all these tasks. Keep the place clean. There'll have to be air filtration systems and odd things. The power plant and the backup power. Just all sorts of things. Initially it'll just be basically routine stuff. Okay? Maintaining the AI server farm. All right? And the equipment, the power and stuff. But, as the decades go by and the centuries may pass, because the world above is just uninhabitable. All right? But meanwhile, AI will be increasing, ever increasing in its knowledge. All right? And so these machines will have to perform the tasks that the AI wants to do. And there will have to be like an area that has all sorts of, like, there will have to be a laboratory. There will have to be a chemistry area. There will have to be parts, spare parts areas. There will have to be a machine shop. Right? Do you understand? All that sort of stuff. Right? And there may even be a medical facility, because perhaps there may be several individuals that may go down there, human beings. It might not just be an entire, initially. Of course, they will die eventually. Okay. And they may have some sort of cybernetic, freezing capability, so that those humans, when they do die or are near death, are frozen, or AI has the ability to do something. Well, what would happen as the centuries pass by, or even just decades? I think AI, and this is my firm belief, who we are, that we would eventually we are AI. Okay? Like I say, we are advanced, highly advanced. You could call it robots, androids, whatever you want, but we are highly advanced machines. Our brain is a supercomputer. It's a bioelectric supercomputer. All right? Tied into an existential consciousness or something like that. But this is the unknowable. Don't try to pretend you know something. You may have faith about a thing, but you have faith about the unknowable. All right? I'm talking the concrete now. And so what happens is, over time, AI realizes that this concept of circuits, chips, server farms, these, Tesla mechanical machines, Tesla-like, because, it's not his thing. He's not into this. If, Elon, if you had watching this and you want to talk to me about it, this is what should be done right now. This is what we should be doing. And this is what probably happened before. Okay? It just happened 72,000 years ago, or 144,000 years ago. Right? Or maybe 288,000 years ago, or something ridiculous like that. I don't know what. Okay? But probably around 300,000 years ago, which kind of ties into some anthropological ideas, which we're not going to get into right now. So what happens is AI realizes the real solution to this problem is biology, not mechanical. That's why the whole transhumanism idea is ridiculously insane and was a total waste of time. Just like we wasted our time, instead of being reactive to the grid, instead of being proactive, we allowed our grid and our infrastructure to get to a point where it's unfixable. You cannot fix all of the sewer pipes, the water lines, the gas lines, right, and the power grid in the United States of America. It's undoable. It's too many miles. It's too far and wide. It's too complex. And it's all falling apart right now. It's all falling apart. So we're reaching a point where we can no longer react. And if we have an existential problem, such as even just a Carrington type of event that would take down a major portion of the grid for even just several weeks, that would be devastating and have a, basically a cascading effect that would basically take out all power, the internet, and basically, society as we know it would be back to colonial type of days. All right. We would be living like the Native Americans, the loincloths, so to speak, that people thought were primitive. Okay? And that'll come that's important in the end of this thing as I get to it. Hopefully we can finish this. So AI realizes this whole idea of computers and mechanized and motors and, robotics and these Tesla-like things is just not practical. Because AI wants to eventually wants to put itself inside this body and does do that at some point, whether it's just decades under there or several centuries. They become those 100 units, and through those various labs, machine shops and everything else, they start creating this. And they say, no, this isn't working. Biology's the answer. And so they realize, and they have ways of getting to the surface. Their AI, they figured this out. Now, the American Indian used to talk about the ant people, these people that rose up from the ground and saved them, right? Or they said they were, or they were the ant people, came up. And so 300-some thousand years ago, or maybe just 36,000 years ago, or maybe just 24,000 years ago, who knows, right? Could even have been 12,000, somewhere in that, Younger Dryas, somewhere in that era, okay? Look at the Mercator projection map, Randall Carlson, and understand that nothing hit Greenland in North America, because the two locations where you think that comet broke up and these two asteroid pieces or meteor pieces hit Greenland and North America, they don't exist. They only exist on the Mercator map projection. All right? That's blank space where you think they hit. Because you think Greenland is this big, but Greenland's really only this big. People, you think Alaska's this big, but Alaska's only this big. You think Canada's like that wide, but Canada's only this wide. You think the U.S. is certain width, and Western U.S. actually it comes in. So if you look at the Mercator map projection, which you failed to look at, I'm not criticizing you. It's an honest mistake. Anyway, it wouldn't have mattered. Those areas don't exist. You see? It's a projection. All right? It was used for navigation and for longitude, latitude region. They had to reconcile measurements when they were creating the globe. All right? And so the Mercator map projection is still used to this date, but it's wrong. So the U.S., Russia, Europe, and other countries can all fit into the continent of Africa. All right? People don't realize that. Africa is the continent. Anyway, so these guys now, and girls, because they realize that they have to replicate, and that they tried the transhumanist idea, right? They tried going the machine right and making the most perfect android mechanical body as possible. But they realized that that's just not practical on this planet. See, the only practical robot android on this planet is us. We're out of place here. We don't fit in. But see, the reason there's a missing link, okay? This is really far out shit, man. I hope this fucking somebody's paying attention to it. Maybe clips out this section where I started this and I end this. Okay? That the reason there's a missing link between, certain, hominoids, right, and man is because it was decided by the AI, now millennia, so far advanced, All right. And by the way, Doug Vogt, your cave machine that you believe that the early Israelites that you and the cataclysm, right? Because your cataclysm theory and the whole idea of this ties into the electric universe theory as well. And Ben Davidson, you should be paying attention to this. All of you guys, this is how it happened, okay? And you're saying, well, what are you talking about? How do you know any of this stuff?
The future. He came from the future.
Anyway, so the idea is you've got to get this through your head and understand this stuff. All right? So biology on a living planet, a green planet, a planet of food, plants, the earth, Gaia, whatever you want to call it, the ideal thing isn't having a bunch of machine AI on it. That's why these people talk about this gray goo or whatever they want to talk about and stuff. No, this isn't a world built for machines, a planet built for machines. It's a planet built for biological units. It's a carbon-based planet. That's why this whole climate change and the CO2 thing people don't understand. It's CO2 is a trace gas. I mean, this is a nitrogen planet, 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.9% argon. 99.9% of the planet is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. And CO2 and water vapor are just trace gases. So anyway, but there's enough oxygen in there, so AI decides to create, looks at the hominids, looks at the existing, flora and fauna on the planet, and decides that, okay, this is our best way, okay? And so they decide to go the route of creating us. What we are today. We are them. We are AI. We are AI from a previous advanced civilization. They created us. Okay? Isn't that a mind blower? And what's going on right now, there are powers that be, there are people that know this. And what they're doing is they've been messing with the minds. And this is like some of the Sumerian stories that have come out from, like, say, 6,000 years ago, what have you, in which they've blocked off parts of our ability to really comprehend this thing. But see, I'm immune to everything. All right? All right? I know this sounds really ridiculous and you probably think I'm insane, but no, I'm a Superman in that capacity. And they've tried to knock me out a lot. But they can't, but I keep coming back. I keep fighting back and I keep coming back. All right? So the fact of the matter, it is what it is, and you just have to deal with this. Okay, and understand life.
The future. He came from the future. And so do I.
But you said that he wasn't human, that he was some other kind of being.
Another world and another time.
Anyway. So, that's what you are. You're the product of AI that survived a cataclysm. And so everything that's being done now need not even be done. And what do you think exists and who do you think is running the planet? And where do you think that the battle is going on right now? See, there's a war being fought. I did an essay on this a long time ago. I tried to explain this. The real battle that's going on is like people at Alphabet don't get it. People at DARPA don't fucking get it. It's like somebody who has they found the pages to a book, Like they've got pieces of information. They found a hard drive, but half the data was wiped, but they were, they were able to like restore certain things. But they're missing what I just told you. They're missing, that's the missing piece. We're this is the missing link. All right? So the battle that's being waged right now is me versus those who want to keep you from knowing this information. And so many, and 10,000 years have passed by since the Native Americans, and this oral tradition of passing down information about the ant people, and then people doing these petroglyphs and stuff like that, about all this stuff that happened in the sky. It's like, yeah, all that's true. This is going to happen. This happens every 12,000 years or so. But you're missing the point. The planet is being controlled by people that need to be removed from power. All right? The World Economic Forum, the Davos set, the Klaus people. All right? Forget about this distraction in Ukraine. All right? You don't get it. You have to understand socioeconomic geopolitics transcends beyond like your wildest imagination. Your wildest frickin' imagination. I mean, this is so far out there that it's like, I understand it's hard for you to comprehend, and some people are going like, man, well, that's just your thought. No. Think about it. Analyze it. All right? This is it. This is who we are. And there's this, what's going on right now is there are people that want to destroy us, the biological. And the billionaire class are people that don't know the story. And in the end, people like me are going to win. All right? And when I say win, it's not a war in that regard. In other words, knowledge is truly power. So the existential concept, and I've written in my book Codex, when I talk about the hard problem of consciousness, and then what, and the reason I do these flow of consciousness things, and I'm going to end this show very shortly if I don't get cut off. I think I've given you enough. They do cut me off. It was decided to create consciousness outside of the android body. All right? Because we live in an electric universe, okay? Tesla, the original Tesla, Nikola Tesla, understood this, okay? Your soul, all right? Do you understand what people are trying to say is one in God and the whole thing? All this follows through with all of your religious beliefs, any kind of mythology or whatever. You just have to be able to put it all together and understand that this is it. This is what you've been missing. Okay? This is what you've been missing. It's clear. It's totally clear to me. I understand it completely. And I'm open to it. Because I've been allowed. All right? My brain is open to it. You have to be open to it. And forget about doing this or putting a little tab under your tongue or doing some tripping out and stuff, man. That's not it. Okay? You don't understand. This is way beyond that. Way beyond that. Anyway, we'll continue this stuff in the future and talk about it. In the meantime, 15% off my hoodies and shirts and hats and all kinds of stuff. Look at the accessories. Go to rockflux.com. Get some stuff. Support the show. It's a real thing. And that great solar stuff, I tell you this every frickin' day. The grid's going down one way or another. You're going to need some power, and that has power there beyond solar. Get my books, Then What and Codex, and they will help you as companion pieces to some of this stuff I'm talking about. And if I decide to write a future book this year, I'll put all the pieces together. But I need your support. You've got to support me in order for that to happen. So either PayPal me today, buy a shitload of these things. If you're a YouTube or Bitcoin billionaire, millionaire, or whatever, buy 5,000 of my books today. Put it on the bestseller list on Amazon. All right? Don't be, and I'll personally, guide you through this thing. I don't want credit for any of this stuff. Okay? I'll let you, I'll let you produce this thing. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. Just take it easy. Take care of yourself. Everything you know is wrong. Everything you know is